Hi, everybody. All right. So, today we are going to talk about Christianity and the Roman Empire. What? Super awesome. All right. Your learning targets are to identify Abrahamic religions, identify two non biblical sources of information for early Christianity, paraphrase how Christianity spread after Jesus' death, identify the type of people who became the first Christians, and explained the way in which women were influential in the early Christian church. Yeah, a lot to cover today. I don't know how long this is going to run, but we're going to find out together. So, your job, you're going to watch the Ed puzzle, answer the questions. Questions I will ask you during the video today will be in blue text. Follow along with your study guide. Oop, this is a little different than most of the other times. So, including vocab words that are in red text, there's not very many this time around. Your study guide will ask you some questions about the information in today's Ed puzzle, so just answer those questions. And of course, if you have any questions, email me or come to office hours Thursday and Friday, 12 to 1. Ha, so fun. All right. Wait, wait, Miss Corey. I didn't think you could teach about religion in public schools. Actually, it is a part of the standards I need to hit for the state of Minnesota. You can go look up that standard if you want. Also, religion and history are incredibly intermixed. I mean, insanely intermixed. So to pick out just the religious pieces of history is like telling me to pick out just the sugar molecules in a jar of honey. But once I do, it isn't honey anymore. Okay? Same with religion and history. If I pick out all of the religion from history, it isn't history anymore. Religion and history goes hand in hand. Do you like my analogy? I did it myself. Ha. Yeah, I have no life. This is what I do in my free time. All right. So, religion. I like to look at religion like this. Pretend that it's like a very beautiful giant like diamond or another gemstone of the sort. I don't have one on hand with me today, so we're just going to use a snow globe. It's cute. Look, it has like a little loon in it. Okay? So look at religion like this shiny diamond, all right? So each person has their own unique perspective of religion. There is an infinitive amount of ways to look at religion. So, if religion is like a diamond and I turn it, every single time that I turn it, the people all around it will see a different aspect about that diamond. They're going to see different colors, they're going to see different cuts, they're going to see different shapes, different beams of light that reflect off that diamond. Okay? So, everyone who is viewing that diamond, aka religion, is going to see it differently. So person A is going to see it differently than person B, and person B is sure going to see it differently than person F. Okay? Everyone sees religion in their own perspective. So today, we're going to just look at one tiny fracture. Okay? We're going to learn about the historical perspective of Christianity, right? Just one little sliver. What I'm not going to do, so tricky part is we're in public school. I am not going to change your perspective of your religion. No, that's insane. Why would I ever want to do that? That's not my job. What you choose to believe is your choice. And I'm just giving you the historical aspects about it because history is my thing. All right, let's get started. So, from the U4-L6 video about Christianity, tell me at least 3 aspects of Christianity that you learned or remembered from the video. All right, so here's just kind of the basics about what the video covered. So Christianity is monotheistic. Remember that? That means they worship one God. It started approximately 33 CE, and that's after the Christian Messiah. His name was Jesus. He died. Jesus was a Jewish carpenter. The Roman Empire put Jesus to death after he was seen as a religious rebel. Okay. Remember, people in the Roman Empire had to follow the imperial cult. Remember when you read about the imperial cult last week with like all the cool like Roman emperors? Yep. Okay. So people had to follow the imperial cult aka they had to worship Roman gods. It was a state religion. There was no other option. Followers, aka disciples, spread the word of teachings of Jesus. Okay. And then today, Christian sacred text is called the Bible. And the Bible includes two kind of sections to it, which is the Old and the New Testament. All right, so the origins of Christianity. I remember back when I was in the 11th grade and I was told this, and my mind was like, okay, so Christianity comes from Judaism. So if you remember back, what was that? Was that Unit 1 or Unit 2? I don't even remember anymore. Anyway, if you remember back, Judaism started about 2000 BCE. That varies on what historian you want to talk to. Judaism, also monotheistic. They had an important messenger. His name was Abraham. He is considered the first Jewish person. Their holy text is the Hebrew Bible, which includes the Torah. And the Christian Old Testament and the Hebrew Bible have the majority of the same texts. Okay, so they're not 100% the same, but they do have like a lot of overlapping religious texts. All right, and Judaism gave birth to Christianity, which started at about 33 CE at Jesus' death. There's kind of like a plus or minus 3 years on that. It depends what historian you ask. The main messenger and Messiah of Christianity was Jesus, who was a Jew. And Christianity believes in other prophets, people who spread the word of God, including Abraham. Okay, so they both believe in Abraham. And then their holy text is the Bible, which includes the Old and the New Testaments. So Judaism and Christianity, okay, these are both considered something called Abrahamic religions. And what Abrahamic religions are religions that like are like have Abraham as one of the important main figures. There's another Abrahamic religion, and we're going to talk about that sometime this semester. Not quite sure when yet. We'll get there. All right, so this is really important to note. Jews and Christians believe in the same God. Okay, of course, they might have some different interpretations about that, but it is the same God. All right, so what do we know about early Christianity besides the Bible? All right, so remember the Bible is the holy text, but there is other texts out there too that support early Christianity. So there are about 10 non-religious sources that mention Jesus. Okay, so these are like actual like government documents that like mention him. There are also a few that are disputed by historians, so that's why I kind of put in like about 10. The two major sources that we're going to look at today are from Flavius Josephus and the Roman senator Tacitus. Yeah, okay, let's go with that. All right, so the first dude, his name is Flavius Josephus. Now, he was a Roman Jewish historian. He lived about 37 to 100 CE. So he would have not met Jesus in person, but he would definitely been around people that might have known Jesus firsthand. So he wrote briefly about Jesus's popularity, death, resurrection, as well as Christian followers. So here is an example, or actually, here is like the translated version of the text that he wrote that mentions Jesus in it. It says, "About this time there lived Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one ought to call him a man, for he was one who performed surprising deeds and was a teacher of such people as accept the truth gladly. He won over many Jews and many of the Greeks. He was the Christ. And when, upon the accusation of the principal men among us, Pilate had condemned him to a cross, those who had first come to love him did not cease. He appeared to them, spending a third day restored to life. For the prophets of God had foretold these things and 1,000 other marvels about him. And the tribe of the Christians, so called after him, has still to this day not disappeared. Okay? So that is actually what Flavius Josephus wrote. Okay, he didn't write it in English, but that is a solid piece of historical documentation outside of the Bible that proves of Jesus's existence. Oh yeah, he also wrote one more passage about Jesus, but there wasn't as much information, so I just put in this one. All right, the other dude who wrote about Jesus, his name was Tacitus. He was a Roman senator, so he worked for the Roman Empire. Okay. And remember, if he was a senator, he definitely was not a Christian. He was a someone who was part of the imperial cult. So he lived about 56 to 120 CE. So again, he would have never made contact with Jesus, but he could have had like firsthand sources from people who had contact with him or his apostles or disciples. So he's writing history about the Great Fire of Rome in about 64 CE. This is where like pretty much this gigantic fire destroyed Rome back in 64 CE. It lasted 9 days, and 10 of the 14 districts that Rome was divided up into was totally destroyed. Okay, so this was like this devastating fire for all of Rome. The emperor at the time, okay, his name was Nero. If you did last week's assignment, you watched the Nero video, which is really interesting. You will learn that he's kind of a crazy person. So Nero was rumored to have set fire to Rome, although there's like kind of a lot of debate if that's true or not. So here's a little statue of Tacitus, and then here's a bust of Nero, and then an artist's rendition of the burning of Rome. All right, so Tacitus, he explains that Nero was like super mad about these fires, and actually Emperor Nero blamed the Christians for these fires. As you can tell, Nero did not like Christians. In Tacitus' explanations, he mentions Christ. Okay, so Christ in this case is going to equal Jesus, and was put to death by Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate was the governor of a region of Judea from 26 to 36 CE. So Pontius Pilate also served under Emperor Tiberius, and he gave Jesus the death penalty. Here's a 1500s painting of Pontius Pilate sentencing Jesus. All right. So if you're like, well, where's Judea? So here's a map of the Roman Empire and all of its little regions. So again, here's Italy. Okay, so Rome's going to be like kind of right here, where if you see where my arrow is, or like where my cursor is, and then this arrow right here, this is pointing to Judea. Okay, so that's where Pontius Pilate was like the governor of, and you can see that it's kind of right between Europe, Asia, and Africa. All right, so this is what Tacitus wrote. I'm just going to read you part of it. So he says, consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the populace. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate, or Pontius Pilatus. I don't know Latin. I'm sorry. So this is again another evidence coming from a non-religious source about Christianity. All right, so Roman life and for early Christians. So Christianity first spread in Jerusalem, era after Jesus' death, which again was about 33 CE. Both Gentiles refer to people who aren't Jews, and Jews could become Christians, okay? So it wasn't like just the Jews converted. Nope. Like anyone can convert to Christianity during that time. Jesus' disciples spread his teachings around the Mediterranean, North Africa, Western Asia. Paul, who's one of Jesus's apostles, and what an apostle means is this, like a chief disciple, like one of the main people, is famous for traveling great distances. So here's an artist rendition of Paul preaching. Um, Here's a map of Paul's journey. Now, again, this map has a lot of different sources coming from it, some biblical, some not biblical. But you can see here just kind of how Christianity spreads. So here's Jerusalem, kind of right down here on the bottom, and you can just see how it is going to start spreading up through Asia into that Anatolia region. And then, of course, over here onto Greece, and then eventually onto Italy itself. All right, so in the early days of Christianity, the Jewish leaders were really mad at the disciples who followed Christianity. The leaders didn't accept these like new teachings as part of the like Jewish tradition. And the Jewish leaders banned disciples from Jewish communities. So if they ban people from the communities, that means those people have to go elsewhere. So disciples travel and spread word of Christianity elsewhere in the world, and Christianity becomes even more widespread because of that. All right, so early Christians were middle and lower class. Okay, that was kind of the big economic group that really became Christians in the early days. That could include artisans, workers, also could include enslaved peoples. Yes, there were enslaved peoples in Rome. Women were vital to early Christianity. So women could own property and houses in ancient Rome. Lower and middle class women were not housebound, so they could go out into the public markets by themselves and spread beliefs to men and women that they meet at the markets. All right. So worship was a little bit tricky for early Christians. Since Christianity was illegal in the Roman Empire, they had to worship in secret. So the Roman Empire really hated this new Christian religion. And women oftentimes would offer their houses as a place of worship. Because remember, because women can own houses. Women who chose not to marry, which was seen as really a negative thing in Roman culture, could seek leadership roles in maintaining Christianity and meetings. Here is a underground church that archaeologists found in Turkey. It dates from about 400 CE. All right, so it's important to note, though, that women could not, like, there are some restrictions about women in the church, so they could not copy Christianity's holy text. That was seen as a man's job. Although the majority of middle class women could indeed read and write. Women could not participate in leading worship. They could host it, but could not lead it. And women were not allowed to travel far without being accompanied. So they could travel like within their like little neighborhood or their little town, but they couldn't go and preach Christianity to other towns and cities. But that was a pretty like normal thing in Rome, like for all women. All right. So here is kind of a cool example. So here's a picture. I know, I'm sorry about the watermarks. It was the best picture I could find. So this place here, it looks like a very typical old Roman Empire stucco house, besides this little crest in the statue here. But what's inside? Yes, inside is a secret church for early Christians. So this is called Saint Ananias. Oh shoot, I didn't pronounce that out loud. I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry. House, which is in modern day Syria. So the house itself, so back on the other side, the house itself was actually built before the death of Jesus. But of course, it's been really well maintained. And the underground church that you see here was built in about the 400 CE. Okay. So it's literally an underground church because it was illegal to worship otherwise. And here's a chapel in that same house as well. Again, some of these things are a little bit more modern because it's been upkept as a church all this time. So, but it's still pretty cool to look at. All right, so next up, I'm going to show you some pictures of Christians' catacombs in Domitia, Rome. If you don't know what a catacomb is, they're pretty awesome. I've never been in one myself, but they're man-made underground long passageways, so like hallways, made to bury the dead and decorated with religious pictures and symbols. They're like a huge tourist attraction in Europe. Hey, if you ever been to one, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. So here's kind of like an example of what a catacomb hallway looks like. So you can see like all these like little slots in the walls. Those where like dead bodies would go. So this one that we're going to look at specifically was built about 100 to 300 CE, so very early Christianity. It's about 17 kilometers long. Remember, these are man-made, and it still has bones of some of the bodies that were buried in there. All right, so here is kind of a cool picture of the catacombs. So again, they were really nicely decorated. So here is a picture of what is representing Jesus's Last Supper. Here's another awesome room within the catacomb. It is called the Hypogeum. That just means chamber of Flavi. So as you can see here, it's underground. Oh, big surprise. There's a lot of like stucco artwork around it. And then you can see here, there's these kind of like little archways with kind of like a little slab. That's where the bodies go. All right, and then here is another part of the catacomb. You can see here the bodies are going to go into these like kind of little archways, and then it's really finely decorated with some early Christianity symbols such as Jesus and his 12 apostles. Here's another one. This one is actually a little bit unique because it shows actually a depiction of a martyr. If you don't know what a martyr is, you're going to sure find out in the next lesson. But it is someone who is killed due to their faith. Um, so, and then here's like where the body would go. And then here's like a picture of the martyr. All right, here's the zoomed in picture of that. And the martyr her name is Petronella. And again, a martyr is someone who's killed by their faith, but you can see just kind of like the crazy details that artists made for these catacombs. All right, so wrap up time. Because this was a deep lesson, okay? We got pretty deep in this one. So everyone has their own perspective of religion. Remember my like, cool little jewel symbol. Christianity and Judaism are Abrahamic religions. Christianity, holy text is the Bible. Christianity believes in Jesus as the Messiah. Jesus was put to death for going against Rome's national religion. There are two non-biblical sources of Jesus coming from Flavius Josephus and Roman Senator Tacitus. Oh my God. Early Christianity was popular among lower and middle class, included both men and women. Early Christianity was spread by disciples traveling around the Mediterranean. Men and women were not seen as equals in the early church and looked at an early church and catacombs together. Yay! That was fun. We had a lot of fun, didn't we? All right, so next up, you are going to do the assignment U4-L7, The Martyrdom of Perpetua and Felicity. Yes, this is not an ed puzzle. It is a reading assignment, and I'm super excited for you all to read this because it is one of my favorite historical texts. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting. So this is one of the most well-known cases of martyrdom in Christianity. Again, martyrdom is when someone is killed because of their faith. Perpetua and Felicity were killed by the Roman government in 203 CE. It is a somewhat complicated text. I mean, like when I was even reading through it like yesterday and today, I had to like stop and like think like, oh my gosh, what are they trying to say? But I do help you throughout the text with some orange. You'll see like brackets with orange text in the middle of them. That's me trying to help you out with some of the harder words and harder concepts. You'll read the directions. You'll learn more about this when you move on. So if you have any questions or comments, or do you want to learn more about early Christianity from a historical perspective, I have lots of resources about it. You can email me or come to office hours Thursday and Friday, 12 to 1. So I did take a early Christianity class in college. It's called History 3081, Martyrs, Monks, Crusades, World Christianity, 100 to 1400 CE. So I do have a fair amount of resources about all this. So if you want to learn more, let me know. There's Cat. It's cute. All right. That's all I got. Bye.